From owning the top dogs at lightweight to being lauded for his abilities by even the lightweight GOAT. This is why Charles Oliveira will destroy Beneil Dariush. To put it simply, he's got way more experience at the top of the table. I mean, the man's been competing in the UFC for more than a decade, and during that time he's faced some real killers on the roster. Name any tough fighter out there, DeBronx has probably faced and most likely defeated them. He's thrown it down with the best of the best and come out on top more often than not. That's why everyone in the promotion respects him so much. Most recently, Oliveira has taken on and beaten Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje, and only fell short to Islam Makhachev. He lost his title and now he seeks to claim it back. That alone makes him more dangerous than ever before because he won't be holding anything back. Benny has to be careful about how he approaches this fight. And he must acknowledge how wickedly good this guy is, because Charlie can make Dariush tap all too easily. Being the submission artist in the best MMA promotion in the world is nothing to be taken lightly. Over the course of his career, the Brazilian has accumulated 19 finishes, 16 of which are via submissions. I don't need to tell you guys, but that's a record. No one has even come close to it. I mean, Demian Maia is second on those rankings and he only has 11 submissions. Benny can't afford to turn off for even a second against Oliveira. Otherwise, it's gonna be good night, sweet prince all too soon for him. The best part about DeBronx's ground game is that it's just so fluid. He doesn't need to take you down to set up a submission. He can pull it off even when he's under pressure. That's probably the most important aspect of his fighting style, and that's why his opponents are always wary of him even when he's on the bottom. It doesn't matter if his opponent is pounding on him or stifling him with top pressure. Charlie can almost always sneak something in. Just look at what he did to the Diamond. It's always a dogfight when you go up against a guy like Poirier, and that's exactly what it was at UFC 269. Poirier started the fight strong, landing some devastating strikes on the Brazilian, and it looked as if Oliveira was out of his depth in this one. Almost everyone was predicting Dustin to take the win here, but Charlie had other plans. He rallied in the second round and secured a takedown. From there, he landed some really nasty blows on the challenger, and it looked like the odds were back to even. Round 3 saw DeBronx swoop in for a clinch pretty early, and from there, he somehow managed to take Poirier's back. That right there was game over. Even Dustin knew it as he frantically tried to fight Oliveira's hands, but it was too late by then. Charlie had already sunk in his hooks and was choking the life out of the Diamond. Later in an interview, he admitted that he has opportunistic jiu-jitsu and that he sees submissions that others don't. But that doesn't mean he can't scrap it out when he has to. Remember his first round finish against Gaethje? Yeah, it may have been a submission, but he had to set that one up. From the get-go, Oliveira was the one pushing the pace of the fight. He really took it to the highlight, forcing him to engage with him. Now, obviously, when you try to brawl with a guy like Gaethje, you'd probably get hit a lot too. And there were no surprises when the former UFC interim lightweight champ knocked down Charlie a couple of times. Even so, he was reluctant to follow the submission artist to the ground because of the danger Oliveira poses there. Charlie kept getting up and tagging Gaethje in response, until a right hook dropped Justin to the canvas. From there, Oliveira rushed at him, going for a reverse triangle at first, which the highlight quickly shrugged off. Charles, being who he is, transitioned to a beautiful rear naked choke with a full body triangle, and from there he just ended the fight. It may have been all over in a little more than 3 minutes, but it was full of action, and DeBronx showed that he had no reservations in engaging in all-out brawls if he wants to. Having said that, Dariush won't be an easy opponent for Oliveira to walk through though, because he can do a lot of those things that the Brazilian does. Currently, Benny's on an 8-fight winning streak. He has taken on some of the best in the division and beaten them at their own game. Of course, he hasn't fought the likes of Poirier and Gaethje as yet, but he has been very impressive against guys such as Ferguson and Mateusz Gamrot. Then there's also the fact that many consider the Iranian-born American to be a more complete fighter. He's very decent in the striking department and can make stuff happen on the ground as well. Obviously, you can't compare his submission skills to that of Oliveira, but his wrestling ability is something that DeBronx has to be mindful of. He may not be as seasoned as the Brazilian, but he has been in the UFC long enough to know who's who inside the octagon. And to top it all off, Benny can also dig deep and go that extra mile if it comes down to it. That's why Paul Felder is betting on Dariush to take the win. He's been predicting this since last year, even before Makhachev defeated Oliveira. According to Felder, there's just something about Beneil's fighting style that can cause problems for the Brazilian. Charlie could have found a way around Islam's wrestling prowess. He could have fought from the back or snuck onto his back somehow. But he can't do the same against Dariush. The Irish Dragon thinks that Beneil can put Oliveira to sleep on the feet. And he's not afraid to stand in the pocket and trade punches. He has got grappling skills, but that mostly consists of defensive wrestling, which is pretty ideal against a guy like Charlie, who doesn't have the same level of takedowns as one of those Dagestani fighters. Beneil has also got great kicks, and if Oliveira's fight against Gaethje was any indication, then you guys know that DeBronx doesn't really check those low kicks. That could cause a whole lot of trouble for him if it comes down to it, cause Beneil can follow it up with some devastating strikes to the chin. Another guy who has chimed in Dariush's favor is Drew Dober. He believes that the Iranian-American is the legitimate #1 contender at lightweight and should have gotten his title shot by now. Even then, he thinks that Beneil will just run through Oliveira, and will then land his much-deserved championship fight against Islam. Dober is picking Dariush against the reigning champ too. Having fought and lost to both of them, he knows that Beneil has what it takes to dethrone the Dagestani machine, cause he just keeps getting better with every single fight. Of course, it won't be easy for him, but if anyone can do it, then it's gotta be Dariush. Especially after Alexander Volkanovski exposed so many holes in Islam's game. That's something that Beneil can capitalize on and ultimately claim the lightweight crown for himself. Dober might make a good case for Dariush, but you can't ignore it when Poirier picks someone. During this whole Beneil-Oliveira-Dustin love triangle, the Diamond has largely kept quiet. He hasn't even officially picked a guy for the showdown at UFC 289, but it's no secret that he largely favors DeBronx. Even when the Brazilian was set to face Islam in 2022, Poirier was betting on his former opponent to take the win. That didn't happen, but I doubt it would have changed Poirier's opinion of Oliveira. He has fought Charlie, so he knows how dangerous he can be inside the octagon, and he knows that the threat of submission is all too real. Beneil did try to get Dustin to fight him, but he didn't seem all too interested in that match. Even when Dariush told him to retire because he was only chasing big names, Poirier kept his cool and didn't engage in any trash talk. Maybe he thinks that Beneil just isn't worth his time. It's true that he has his own title aspirations, but you can't question his read on Oliveira's game. Much like Khabib's take on it. Back when DeBronx was set to fight Islam for the title, the Eagle was very mindful of what Charlie brings to the octagon. He talked about how dangerous he is with his submission, in particular his guillotine. He also warned Makhachev about Oliveira's knees and kicks, which he has significantly improved upon over the years. You guys know how amazing of a coach Khabib was during his short stint, and he pretty much predicted the Brazilian's game to perfection. I mean, he was shouting out live instructions to Islam during the fight. He knew exactly where Oliveira was dangerous and how Makhachev could counter him. But Dariush won't have Khabib in his corner during the fight, and I really hope he has gone through some of his insights into DeBronx's fighting style. So, from being lauded for his abilities by even the lightweight GOAT, to owning the top dogs at lightweight, this is why Charles Oliveira will destroy Beneil Dariush.